Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today at this second meeting of the project Rossana Design Talks. This is a communication project by Rossana, which aims at preparing some meetings to share information and thoughts with the protagonists of design. Our first meeting was with Emanuele Colombini, that is the president of the Colombini Group. Colombini Group acquired the brand of Rossana in 2009. During our first meeting, we spoke of the positioning of the brand, its strength, and its characteristics. One of the characteristics of the brand is definitely the use of certain materials. I am referring to stones, metal, wood, but also the use of brass. At the end of the 60s, when Rossana was still named RB Rossana, the brand was already famous, and it actually marked the history of kitchens and the way we understand and perceive kitchens. One of the projects of back then was the Isola project by Giancarlo Liprandi, and since the beginning of the 70s, this has also been exposed at the MoMA Museum in New York. Today we are here to speak to one of the most important representatives of Italian and international design. I am referring to Michele de Lucchi, whom I am sure does not need an introduction. However, I want to give you a brief historical background of his career. As a young architect in the 80s, he was one of the protagonists of the Memphis Group, together with Ettore Sozzas.
Later on, he designed various pieces of furniture for the most important Italian and foreign companies. He was the protagonist of the Olivetti design and also the director of Olivetti Design since 1988 to 2002. He also carried on architectural projects in Italy, abroad. He worked for the Deutsche Bank. He worked for Enel, Italian Post Office, Intesa Bank, Unicredit Bank. He worked in Piazza Gaiolenti in Milan, which is currently also the home of BMW. And we must also mention his Pavilion Zero in the Expo in Milan in 2015. Moreover, he was also the designer of various museums, as for example, the Biennale Museum, the museum in Berlin, where he cooperated with other important designers. And lately, he's also been working on Italian museums. Apart from all of this, he was one of the first designers for Rossana. So thanks to him, we're going to start our meetings talking to the designers and architects who have projected and keep designing for Rossana. Michele, can you please tell us about your first projects with Rossana and the characteristics of what you did? And also, could you please tell us how old you were when you started working for Rossana? Oh, wow, you're taking me back in time. Thank you for this. Really, I appreciate it. I started working for Rossana at the beginning of the 80s. It was an incredible time for me. I had recently come to Milan from the city of Florence, where I studied. I had already met Ettore Sozzas. And I started my relationship with Olivetti, as you just said. So back at the time, I started taking my first steps as a freelance worker. I must say that at the time I was trying to divide myself between keeping up with time and most extraordinary ideas of architecture. And on the other hand, I was trying to carry on the profession in a very serious way. I was meeting up with companies. I was talking about the problems of the market, budget problems. And also I was trying to convince managers to do what I consider to be very important. So there were two different aspects, but I need to say that I was very, very lucky because I was able to live through a moment in which these two aspects went hand in hand. So on the one hand, I was keeping up with time, and on the other hand, I was dealing with all the managerial aspects. Rossana was definitely a very important and interesting project for me. Why is it so? Well, the
gestione dei
reason is
sistemi.
that
E
drawing
come
kitchens and creating
mi
systems
ricordo che a
is
quell'epoca
something
io
that I
raccontavo
remember
che
since back in the
essendo
time.
gemello
I
e
always
raccontando
told a
anche la
story to
storia della mia
explain what I
barba,
felt.
che me la sono fatta crescere per essere diverso da mio fratello gemello.
I sometimes
Ecco,
tell this
mio
story
fratello
about my
gemello
beard. In
è
fact, I have a
chimico
twin brother who
e
doesn't have a beard, and he's a chemist.
disegnando
So
sistemi
I decided to grow a
in qualche
beard in
maniera
order
mi
to be
sentivo
different from
molto
him.
simile a mio fratello
I
gemello
felt
chimico,
similar to
finché
my
tutti e
brother, even
due
though we were very
ragionavamo
different,
di
because
molecole
I was
che
drawing
dovevano
kitchens
poi
and
essere
he was
combinate insieme
dealing with
ed era
chemical
solamente nella
compounds.
combinazione di
But we
queste
were both trying to
molecole
find the
che
perfect
nasceva
combination
il
of
prodotto
molecules
finale
that
e
allowed and made it
si
possible
leggeva
to
e si
create a final product.
comprendeva bene qual era l'effetto finale, la
So, thanks to
funzione
the combination of
insieme
these molecules,
di
we were both
elementi
able
che
to
dovevamo mettere
understand what
insieme.
the final
Quindi
function of the elements we had to
ho
put together really
incontrato
was.
l'idea dei sistemi proprio di arredo con le
I
cucine
came
della
across the
Rossana.
idea of furnishing and especially
Era
using
bello,
kitchens
poi
in
la Rossana
furnishing thanks to
fortunatamente
Rossana.
era abbastanza vicina a Milano perché l'Olivetti
I
era
am
lontana,
thankful for
bisognava
the fact
andare
that
a
Rossana
Ivrea, ci
was
voleva
very near
più di
Milan.
un'ora, a
Olivetti was
quell'epoca
very
forse anche
far. I
2
had to
ore per
drive for
arrivare.
over an
Poi io
hour,
avevo
maybe even two
un'automobile di
hours to
vecchia
get to the
Sata
office.
e ci
And
metteva anche 2
actually, at the
ore e
time,
mezza.
my car
E
was
poi
very old,
anche
so at times it even took
mi
me two and
fermavo
a
per
half hours to
strada,
get to Olivetti.
facevo
Of
tutti i
course,
miei
sometimes I
ragionamenti,
also
mi paravo
break,
lungo la
and
strada.
on the way, I would
Ho
try to
preparato
prepare
moltissimi
myself for all the
progetti
various meetings.
lungo la strada,
I must
lungo le
say that while
autostrade per
driving on the
andare
freeway, I
dalle varie
prepared many
aziende in giro
projects. I
per
came up
l'Italia.
with many ideas when I was
E la
going
Ruby
from one
Rossana era
company
proprio
to the
questa, era
other in the
una
country, in
grande
Italy.
fucina di idee dove si cercava di
Since the beginning,
ampliare
I
il più
realized that
possibile le
Rossana was a
possibilità
chance
sistemistiche
to
dei
broaden the
pannelli che
systemic
componevano la cucina.
approaches of the
Come in
different
realtà si
panels
fa
that
ancora
make up
oggi,
a
perché
kitchen. This is
il
something that is
bello
still
delle
true
cucine
nowadays. It is something that we're still doing.
non è proprio studiare il singolo prodotto, il singolo dettaglio,
What
il
I
singolo
like about
elemento,
kitchens
è
is
proprio
that I
studiare
do not only
come il
focus on
tutto
the single
diventa
elements. What I do is I try to
un
understand how
ambiente
everything
meraviglioso.
can create an incredible
E
environment.
uno
So
dei
we put
modelli
all
si
the
chiamava
aspects together.
Fenice. Come mai un
One of the
nome
models that
così?
you
Cosa ti
created was called
richiamava?
the Fenice.
Senti,
Why
mi
did you
ricordo,
choose
sì,
this name?
c'era la 214 e la
Well, I remember that
215
there was the model
e poi c'era la
214 and
Fenice. La
215, and
Fenice
then there was
perché
the model Fenice.
mi piaceva questa idea dell'immaginazione che andava oltre
The reason why I
a
chose this
qualsiasi
name, Fenice,
possibile
which means
fantasia.
phoenix, is
Ho
that I
sempre
like the
creduto
idea of
nell'immaginazione,
creating something that goes
non
beyond
solo,
imagination. I've always
non solo il
believed in
design, ma
imagination.
tutta
I've always thought
la nostra
that
vita, la nostra
design
capacità
and in
di
our
dialogare, di
entire life
comunicare,
and our
è
ability to
basata sulla
communicate
capacità
is based on
proprio di
everyone's ability
immaginare e
to
di
be able to
trasmettere
imagine and to
immaginazione.
go
E allora la
beyond
Fenice
what
per me
we
era
think.
proprio
We
l'idea
need to
di
be able to pass
un'immaginazione
on our
nuova, di una
imagination.
cucina che non era
So
più
I
fatta
wanted to come up
dagli
with a model
elementi,
of a
dai
kitchen that
classici
was not
elementi
only made
dalla base,
of
dal
the
pensile
typical
e dal resto, ma
elements.
era fatta
So, for
come nelle
example,
cucine
the wall
tradizionali,
unit
da un tavolo, da
or
un elemento
bases
di
and the
base,
tables.
dal
I wanted to
fornelli,
create something
dalla
that was
cappa
created
e
by
tutto
many
era
elements put
progettato
together
attorno a
and
quelli
that
che
would
erano gli
create an
elementi
environment
archetipici
that
della cucina.
would
E
be able
sarebbe
to
bello
put
ancora
together all
oggi
the typical elements of
ripensare alla
kitchen.
cucina in questi termini, cioè
I think that today this
ripensare
is
alla
still
cucina
the
proprio
approach that we
in
should
base a
have
quelli
when
che
we try
sono
to
gli
design a
strumenti
new
base
kitchen.
della
We
cucina.
need to start
Ehm,
from the basic elements of a
Cuocere,
kitchen.
cucinare,
So
lavare,
cooking,
conservare,
cleaning, keeping food,
preparare,
storing things,
sono quei concetti
preparing.
base
These
che
are the fundamental concepts
potrà
of
cambiare il
every
mondo finché
kitchen.
vuoi,
And
ci saranno tutti i
even if the
virus che
world
vorrai,
changes,
ma alla
even if
fine
there are
quello che
new
si farà nella
viruses in the
cucina
world,
sarà
I
proprio
am sure
quello
that what
e
we do
sempre
in the
quello.
kitchen will always be the
Grazie.
same.
Magari anche delle cose in più, magari delle cose in più.
Maybe we can
Però
start adding new
è sempre
elements. This, of course, would be
Quelli
possible.
erano quindi gli anni di Memphis, no? Ci puoi
So, can you tell us
raccontare
about the
quegli
years of
anni
the Memphis
buggenti
group?
e cosa ti manca
Can you
di
tell
più
us
di
about those years
quell'atmosfera
and
oggi?
especially what you miss the most
Eh,
about that
senti,
environment?
non so se faccio bene a raccontarlo, però c'è
Oh, I
un
don't know if I
libro
should actually
dell'Isabella
tell you
Allende
this, but let me tell you that there
che,
is a book by writer
che,
Isabel Allende.
che si chiama Afrodita, storie di cibi afrodisiaci e cose di questo genere, dove c'è una
There is a book in which
scenetta
she
che mi è
talks
rimasta molto
about
impressa e che credo
different
sia
types of food.
molto
And
utile per
there is a
immaginarsi la cucina. È
special
un po'
passage in
galosa
the
questa
book
cosa,
that I
ma non so,
consider to be
se
very
volete la
important.
tagliate. perché
If you don't like what I'm
dice
saying, you can
questo.
just cut my words
Una
or
delle
shut me
cose
out.
improvvisate
But
di
let me
lei,
tell you that what Isabella Allende
che
was
ha vissuto
saying is
lei nella
that
sua vita,
one
è
of the
stato
most incredible experiences
cucinare
she
senza
had
vestiti.
was that of
Lei e suo
cooking
marito
without clothes.
completamente senza
She was in the
vestiti
kitchen with
e
her husband.
cucinare
They
in
were
una
both
cucina
completely naked
dove i
and they
profumi
cooked in a kitchen where
e
the smell
il
of the
sapore
food
delle cose si
and the taste of
mescolava al
food was
profumo e al
mixing with
sapore
the
dell'amore.
smell and the taste of their love.
È un libro per cui lei
This,
lo
of course, is
racconta
a
come lo
book.
sa fare lei, in
And
quella maniera
she tells us the
meravigliosa
story in
con
that
la quale
incredible way
scrive,
that
con
she
la
knows how
quale
to do. She
sa
writes in an incredible way.
trasmettere
She knows how
l'immaginazione.
to pass
Però
on
questa idea della
imagination
cucina è una
and
cucina fatta
concepts.
per i
But what I really
corpi
liked about
umani,
this story is that
dove
the kitchen
prepari le
is made
cose
for
per
human
il tuo
bodies.
corpo,
So
dove
what we prepare in
combini
the kitchen
tutta la
is what we're
seduzione
preparing for our
del
body. We need
cibo,
to be
dei
able to link
profumi, delle
all the seduction
spezie,
of food, of the smells, of the
anche
herbs
del
that we use
soffritto,
while
perché anche il
cooking.
soffritto è
And also
buonissimo,
when we fry
con
food, that is
le
also incredible.
seduzioni, i profumi, le sensazioni dell'amore,
We
mi
need to
sembra
be
che sia
able to
proprio
link
un
all
ideale di
these smells
cucina
and tastes to the
che si
smell
potrebbe
and the
ancora
taste
pensare
of
di
love.
progettare.
And I think that this is an
Quindi
ideal of kitchen that
l'atmosfera
we
di
should
quegli
still keep
anni
in
è
mind
questa per
nowadays.
te, che vorresti
So this is
molto
what you
questa,
think
sì.
about when you think about those
Tieni
days.
conto che
Yes,
io vengo
most
da una famiglia
definitely.
cattolica, molto
Just
cattolica,
think I come from a very
una
Catholic
famiglia
family.
veneta,
My family is from the
sono
Veneto
nati
region
tanti
in the
bambini,
north
mia
of
madre ha
Italy.
fatto 8
It is
figli
a big
in
family. My
10
mom
anni,
had
quindi per
8
immaginarti
children in 10
dopo
years.
mi sono trovato
So just imagine what
improvvisamente
that meant.
libero
And
in
after
un'epoca
growing
dove
up
c'era
in this
stata da
big
poco
family, I found myself
la
completely
rivoluzione
free.
sessuale, c'era stata da
There had
poco le
recently been
rivoluzioni
the sexual
studentesche, le
revolution, the
rivoluzioni
student
studentesche erano
revolution,
ancora in atto, il femminismo,
and actually back at the time,
l'indipendenza,
student
questo
revolutions were
senso
still ongoing.
dell'indipendenza.
Feminism was
Era un
starting
senso che
to take
io
part.
sentivo molto,
And
anche
I really
perché
felt
contrapposto
independent. I really felt
con
that
la
all
vita un
these
po'
important
bigotta che
aspects
facevo
were
in
going
Veneto e che
against the
vivevo in Veneto.
closed-minded
Però
life
mi
that I had
piaceva,
lived during
c'erano
my
posti che
childhood.
non mi piaceva tantissimo.
And
E
of
quindi
course, I
tutto questo
liked this
combinato
new
con
way of approach, this
l'immaginazione
new
della vita,
way of
fatta dai
understanding
mobili,
life.
fatti
So I
dall'arredo,
started
fatto
imagining a new
dall'ambiente,
way of
fatto dai
life,
colori,
a way of
fatto
life based
dai
on
racconti,
colors, on the
dalla
environment,
personalità
on
di Héctor
stories,
Sots.
on the
Era una
personalities found
miscela
behind
strepitosa,
people. This was an
meravigliosa
incredible mix
e
of
appunto Ettore,
elements.
non so, non abbiamo mai parlato con Ettore di Isabella Allende e
Ettore and I never
dell'realismo
really
magico
spoke
di quegli
about Isabella
scrittori
Allende and about her
cileni o
incredible realism,
sudamericani, però
about
sono
the realism
convintamente
of
questo Ettore.
writers from Chile or in general
E
from
quindi
South America.
era
But I
tutto un
am sure that
fervore
this is something
legato
that we all need
appunto
to keep
a
in
un
mind.
senso
So going back to
di
your question,
sensualità e di
I
ironia,
felt that
perché
everything was related
ci vogliono
to
tutte e due
an
queste
element
cose
of
qui. Oggi,
sexuality and
oggi
irony, which
per
are
certi
two
versi
fundamental
è
aspects in
quello che mi
everyone's
manca,
life.
soprattutto
I think
l'ironia,
that in some ways
soprattutto una
nowadays I miss
certa
these two
maniera
elements.
di
Especially I miss
intendere la
irony.
vita un
I
po' più
miss a sense of
leggera,
humor.
un
I
po' più
miss the
scansonata, un po'
lightness of
più guarda
understanding
che
life as
essere
something that
spiritosi è
is
una
light
delle
and
chiavi
fun and
più
entertaining. Trust me,
strepitose per
it is
attivare la
important to
fantasia.
be fun. It is important to
Il Cici
activate
Castiglioni, tu
imagination.
te lo ricordi, Castiglioni?
Certo.
Quando stavamo insieme,
Do
lui
you remember
passava
Castiglioni?
giornate, lui
We
diceva
were
a
together, and
cazzeggiare,
let me tell
perché
you
il
that he spent
cazzeggio è il
days doing
sistema
nothing.
migliore per
And
progettare.
trust me, doing nothing is the
Cioè,
best
il
way to
fatto
come up with an incredible
di parlare
project.
liberamente e di dire
It's
cose
important to be able to speak
anche
freely, to be able to say
burlesche,
what you think,
divertenti,
even to make jokes.
cose che un po' ti danno quel taglio della realtà
It is
che
important to be able to
normalmente
speak
non
your
vedi
mind
perché sei
and
sempre alla
view
ricerca
reality from another
dell'efficienza,
point of
sei
view.
sempre alla
Usually
ricerca
we
di
focus on
un'estetica perfetta,
efficiency,
sei sempre
we
alla
focus on
ricerca della
finding the
novità,
perfect look, we
ecco,
focus
quella
on trying to find
trasgressione in
something
più era
new.
una
Trust
trasgressione
me, it is important
fondamentale
for there
che
to be
oggi
transgression. We
sinceramente
need
mi manca.
to be
Mi
able
manca
to
il
rebel,
senso
and
di
I
questa
miss this.
trasgressione
I
sana,
miss the sense of
pulita,
this healthy, clean,
che non fa male, perché
different approach to life.
la trasgressione come la intendiamo oggi è più una
Transgression, as we see it
rabbia
nowadays, is
acidosa,
based on anger.
è una
And this is not
trasgressione
what I'm
che
referring
riporta
to.
al sorriso, a essere
What I miss is
contento
the
e a
type of
vedere il
transgression that
mondo
makes you
con una
smile, that
luce
makes you happy, and that allows you to
molto più
see the world with
positiva
a
e
different
molto più
look. It
anche più
allows you to see the
ambiziosa, perché
world
noi
with a different light,
l'ambizione
and
più grande che
you
abbiamo
have more
è proprio
ambitions.
quello di stare bene.
What is our greatest ambition in life? That of feeling
Pensi
well.
che il coronavirus ci ha insegnato qualcosa
Do you
per lo
think
stare bene?
coronavirus has taught us
Perché
something, has taught us how to
Sì,
feel well?
mi fai la domanda giusta.
Well, this is definitely the right question. Let me tell you what I think. I think that with this new coronavirus, we started doing things we didn't used to do in the past. For example, these digital conversations. This is something very nice. It's also nice to be able to spend more time at home. It's nice to be able to work from our house, to carry on this remote working. I think that we have learned some positive aspects from the virus. However, the good thing is when you can do what you want and you feel free to do them. In fact, if you are forced to do something that may be nice, it loses all the beauty. If you don't have the choice of freedom, then you're not happy. When we draw our projects, when we create a new lamp, a new kitchen, a new coffee machine, or whatsoever, why do we do it? We do it because we want to be able to offer a possibility of choice. We want to give customers a chance to choose what they like the most, what suits them best. We want everyone to be able to identify in the object, and we think that everyone should be able to act and be the best version of themselves. Speaking of which, how do you spend your life between Milan, where you have your office, and your house on the lake, where you live? Let me tell you, what I have told myself now is that I need to be able to take advantage of this extra freedom that has been given to us. So what I've been doing lately is I try to choose what it's best to do isolated, and therefore I do it at my house. I do it in front of the lake, in a different kind of environment, in the woods, with grass around me, animals, horses. Beautiful, I'm in the middle of nature. But then there are some things that are better to do with others. The work of the architect really puts together these two elements because on the one hand, you're able to spend time with yourself. You need to work with yourself. You need to work on yourself, be able to create something. And then on the other hand, you need to work with a team. Architects need to have cooperators, technicians, designers, and especially we need a client. If you work on with yourself, you're your own client, and you're happy when you satisfy your needs. But when you have another client, then you need to understand his or her needs. Very often, the client is not even the one paying you and recognizing the economic value of what you do. Very often, your client is nothing but the world. Nowadays, we've learned that the most important client is the world where we live. The most important client is the world of nature and the world of humanity. These two worlds must go hand in hand. If one is not present, then the other one is going to be missing as well. We cannot live without nature and humanity. So it is better for these two worlds to coexist. And there's also a third element, which is a bit harder to manage, and that is the economy. In order to live all together, we need economy, of course. If there is no economy that regulates human relations and human well-being and allows everyone to have what they need, then there will be a problem, obviously. And I think that this is the hardest topic to really understand, the world of economics. Anyway, in general, we always need to understand that on the one hand, there is the client of nature, and on the other hand, there is the client of humanity. And these two need to go hand in hand. Speaking of working in group, can you talk to us about AMDL Circle? Oh yes, the circle. First of all, let me tell you that this is the symbol of UNESCO for the 7 goals of Sustainable Development Goals. So these 17 Sustainable Development Goals are represented in a circle. The idea is to try to put together all the abilities and all the most integrated aspects that can be related to one another to create a common knowledge. This was already possible 20 years ago.
ma oggi si può
At the
fare.
beginning of the
Mettere
80s, we
insieme
couldn't do this,
l'inconoscenza
but
e
nowadays we can.
realizzare una
We can
conoscenza
link all the
migliore
knowledge of
che
the
ci
world
permetta
to come up with a
veramente di
better knowledge
migliorare il
that really
mondo
allows
sotto il
us to
punto di
improve
vista
the world and
umanistico.
to make it
Io
better under
voglio
a
fare
human point of
architettura
view.
umanistica e Circle
What I
ha
want to
questo
do is I
compito
want to
di
become
fare
a
l'architettura
humanistic
umanistica
architecture.
che tenga
So
di
the
base
circle
la
focuses on this. We want to
sostenibilità
create a type of architecture
naturale,
that considers
climatica
natural
e la
and climate
sostenibilità
sustainability on the one hand, and on the
sociale
other hand,
delle
we
persone,
need to
degli
consider the
uomini
social
e la
sustainability of
sostenibilità
humans, of
economica
people,
che è quella
as well
che
as the
regola tutto
economic
quanto.
sustainability, which is what regulates everything and
Allora,
puts everything
a questo
together.
proposito, adesso, visto che hai questi obiettivi, disegneresti ancora
Okay,
una
thank you for
cucina per
telling us your
Rossana?
goals. And now I would like to ask you, would you draw another kitchen for
E
Sana?
come?
È interessante, sì, va bene.
And if
Allora,
yes, how
se
would you
questi
do that?
obiettivi fossero gli stessi obiettivi che abbiamo e ci mettiamo d'accordo su degli obiettivi di questo,
Okay, if our
di questo
goals are
genere, che
common,
vogliamo,
we can
vogliamo
agree
una
on
cucina
certain
dove
goals. So if we
cucinare
can decide that we want a
sensorialmente
kitchen where
per
we
i
can
sensi
cook in a
dell'uomo, ma
sensorial
che ha
way,
come obiettivo
where we can
salvaguardare la
really
natura e
promote the
salvaguardare un
senses
bene
of human
sociale che
beings,
dura
safeguarding
equivale
nature
per
and
tutti quanti,
safeguarding the
in un
social
contesto di
well-being,
economia che renda tutto
in
quanto
the
possibile,
context of a type of
sono pronto.
economic that is possible, then my
Perfetto.
answer is yes,
Adesso
I'm ready.
speriamo che ci ascoltino i
Okay,
signori
well,
che
let's hope
decidono in
that
Rossana in questa
the big people who
direzione.
decide in Rossana are
Vorrei
listening to
chiudere
us right
per
now, so we
lasciare
might be able to
spazio a
do this.
eventuali
Now, I would
domande
like to
chiedendoti
conclude in
una
order to
cosa
leave some space for
ludica.
possible
Mi hai
questions,
parlato una
but I would like
volta
to ask
dei
you one
fascini che
last
per te
question.
hanno le
Once you
ville
talk to us about
palladiane
the
del Brenta, che
fascination
ti
you have
ricordano
for
un
the villas of
concetto
Brenta,
anche
Palladian
di
villas,
festa
you
che
told me
però
that they
si
remind
trasferiva
you
nell'architettura.
the
Raccontaci meglio
concept that
Sì.
you
questa
turned into
tua
architecture. Can you
idea.
tell us a bit
Lo
more
faccio molto
about this
volentieri,
idea?
molto volentieri.
Oh,
Allora,
yes, I am very happy to
l'architettura
answer this
è
question.
sicuramente tutto quello che riguarda il vivere dell'uomo, la
First of all,
protezione,
architecture is everything
il
that has to do
contesto,
with the protection, the context, and the environment of
tutte
human
le buone
beings.
ragioni che però oggi dobbiamo dire per certi versi sono ovvie, perché è ovvio che
Let's
devi
say that
fare
nowadays it
un'architettura
is obvious
funzionale,
that we need to
un'architettura
create a functional
economica,
type of architecture,
un'architettura
that the
che
architecture needs to be economic, that
ecologica, che ha
it
bene
needs
in
to be
mente
ecological, it needs to be
il consumo
sustainable.
di beni
I think it
rinnovabili,
is clear
di
to
risorse
everyone that
rinnovabili,
nowadays
tutto quello va
architecture
benissimo.
needs to
Ma
use
l'architettura
renewable
è
resources.
anche
This is
è anche
clear,
contesto, è
okay.
anche
But let me
scenografia,
say that
è anche la
architecture is
scenografia
also
nella quale
the
noi
scenography that we
tutti,
can create.
essendo e umanità tutti insieme, proprio pratichiamo il senso della vita.
Architecture nowadays needs
Esercitiamo
to
la
make it
nostra
possible for
esistenza.
us
Chi
to
è che
put in
diceva che siamo
practice
tutti
the
degli
sense of
attori?
life.
Siamo tutti degli
Someone used to
sì,
say that we're
perché
all
tutto
actors
quanto
in our
parte dalla
life.
nostra
And this
testa,
is
parte
true
dalla
because
nostra
everything starts
immaginazione,
from our
parte
mind, from our
da
imagination.
quello che la mente che abbiamo dentro costruisce.
Everything we create
E
starts from what our mind creates.
tutti i giudizi che noi esprimiamo derivano tutto da quello che abbiamo
Every
nella nostra
time
mente.
we give an
Allora,
opinion,
i
this comes
veneti,
from what is
soprattutto le
found
famiglie
inside our
ricche
mind.
veneziane, che avevano dei
Rich
palazzi
families from the Veneto
relativamente
region and
piccoli
especially from the
in
area
centro a
of Venice
Venezia, si
used to have some very
costruivano
small apartments in
nella
the city
terra
center
ferma
of Venice.
delle
And at the
grandi
time,
ville
they
che
would
guarda un po' erano
build
tutte senza
some
nemmeno le
big
fondazioni,
houses in the
perché
suburbs.
erano delle scenografie per fare le feste d'estate
And these
ed erano delle
houses were only
scenografie
aimed at hosting
meravigliose che
parties in the
facevano
summertime. So they
realizzare
would
al
create these
Palladio,
incredible
guarda un po',
villas.
giusto un architetto passato lì per caso, o ai grandi architetti del momento, facevano
Great
dipingere dal
architects of the
Chievo, dal
time
Veronese, da tutte le
would
grandi
work on
scuole
these
di pittura
kitchens.
veneziana ed erano proprio
For
degli
example,
ambienti
architect
fatti per fare
Palladio
feste, per
cooperated in some
attivare
of these
l'immaginazione.
villas.
La
So
festa
the
è
goal of
fondamentale.
these
Gilda, tu lo
creations
sai
was always
bene,
to
lo sai bene
activate
che fai
imagination.
il fuorisalone e quando fai vivere Milano durante quella
Gilda, I'm sure that you
settimana,
know
e
what I
so che
am
ne
talking
stai
about because
preparando una
when in
settimana in
Milan
più
you
perché
present your
il
products,
Covid ci ha
you try
regalato una
to focus
settimana
on
ancora in più a
imagination.
settembre.
Now,
Quelle lì sono feste
you have some more
meravigliose
time
perché
because
sono
of the
feste
COVID, but
che
I know what you
attraggono
mean.
tutto il
You know
mondo,
what I mean
attraggono
when I
tutto il
talk
mondo a
about
Milano
parties
perché
that
sono delle feste
catch the
che
attention from
ti
everyone in the world.
danno stimolo,
These kind of parties gives you a stimulus. They give you a new way of imagination, to be able to see the future in a different way. The future should not be seen as only made of the virus. Of course, we need to be aware. We know what can happen if the virus hits the world, and we need to be careful and be aware that there can be a new pandemic if we lose control of our world. However, we must always understand that human beings aim at a better world and a better life. This new life and new world needs to be more sustainable and more in synchronization with what we have and what we expect to have.
Grazie mille, grazie mille. Devo dire
Thank you
che in
very much.
effetti la mia idea, quando ho fatto nascere nel 90 il fuorisalone,
In fact, in the
era proprio
90s,
l'idea
when
di
I
fare
created the
una
Fuori
grande
Salone,
festa
my
del
idea was
progetto del
that of
design con gli
having a
amici,
great
designer
party
passati
of
in tutte le
design
terre
with
e tanti
architects,
altri
designers, and
con
many
cui si
others
lavorava in quei
who we
tempi.
were working with.
Bene, grazie mille Michele.
So thank you very much. And we will have many more occasions like that, don't worry.
Ancora. A questo
Yes, we still
punto,
need
se
time to have
qualcuno
fun together.
di coloro che sono in linea con noi
Now, I
voglia
don't know if
porci
anyone
delle domande,
who is connected and
siamo
watching
qui
our talks
e Michele
have
è a
any
disposizione.
questions.
Non
If you have
pertanto,
questions,
a
we're
voi.
here and Michele has time to answer your questions.
Allora, c'è una domanda di Alessandra.
Okay, we have a
Vedi,
question by
Michele?
Alexandra.
Si parla molto
Michele, can
di
you
design
see it
e
on the screen?
sostenibilità.
The question says,
Che
there's a lot of
consiglio
talk about
daresti ai
design and
giovani
sustainability. What is
designer
your
e
advice
architetti?
for young designers and
allora,
architects?
Sicuramente ai giovani designer direi proprio quello che ho detto poco fa.
Well, if I have to
Cioè,
give a
quella
message to
ricetta
young
che ho
designers and
usato
architects,
per me
I would
stesso. Pensare che
definitely
il mondo non è
say that
fatto
you need to
solamente
take the
da
recipe
quello
I
che
use for
ricevi da
myself.
fuori.
So
È fatto
consider
molto
that the
anche da quello
world
che
is not
ricevi
only
da te.
made of what you
Il
receive
primo
from
cliente
outside,
di
the
quello che
world is
fai
also
sei te
made
stesso.
of what
Se
you
non ti
receive
trovi
from
te,
yourself.
un
You are
cliente
your
dentro te
first
stesso,
customer.
non
And if you do
riesci,
not find your
non
customer
riesci
inside
a
you,
soddisfare
then
gli altri
you will
clienti.
not be
Perché
able
se
to
non sei capace di
satisfy the
soddisfare te
needs
stesso,
of
come fai
other
a
clients.
soddisfare gli altri clienti?
If you do not
Non
satisfy
puoi.
yourself, how
Quindi
can you satisfy
devi,
others? You can't.
non puoi stare seduto su una sedia ad aspettare
You
che
can't
arrivino
just sit
le
on a chair
commesse, gli
and wait for
incarichi,
people to
che
come ask
qualcuno
you
ti
for
bussi alla
work, to
porta
come
e ti dica
knock on your door and
architetto,
say,
designer,
hey,
mi disegni
architect, designer, can you please
diciamo, mi
do this
disegni
for
quel
me?
prodotto. Non
You cannot
succede.
just sit down and wait for that to
Devi
happen.
fare
This won't happen.
qualcosa che soddisfa te stesso.
You
E
need to
quando hai
find
qualcosa
something
che soddisfa
inside
te
of you. You
stesso,
need to
lo vai
satisfy
a
yourself.
presentare.
And when you
Oggi
find
hai
that, you can
tutte le
go out to the
strade
world
per
and
poter
present it.
presentare molto di più
Nowadays,
di
there
quello
are
che
many
facevamo
ways
una
to
volta.
present your projects to the
Mi
world,
ricordo Gilda che
much
venivo
more
da
than in the
te a
past.
farti vedere i progetti perché volevo che
Remember,
li
Gilda, I used to
pubblicassi
come to
su
you,
interni
showing you my
e li
projects
trovasti in
because I
qualche
wanted you
maniera.
to publish
Oggi ci
my
sono i
projects on the
social,
Interni
c'è il
magazine.
web,
Nowadays,
ci
it's
sono
easier. There's social media, there is the internet,
tutte le email,
websites.
ma tutto,
You can
tutto,
send
le
emails.
newsletter,
It is very
i
easy.
siti
There are
internet, puoi
newsletters.
fare quello che vuoi.
So you can
Quindi
really
hai
do
molte
whatever
più
you want.
possibilità di una volta.
So trust me, there are more
L'importante
possibilities than in the
è
past.
trovare il
But the
cliente dentro
important
se
thing
stesso.
is to be able to find
Clienti
the
che
client
sono,
within
per
yourself.
esempio, la sostenibilità. La
A client could
sostenibilità
be
è un cliente
sustainability.
straordinario,
Sustainability
ricchissimo,
is an incredible client.
pieno di idee, di fantasia
It is a
e
client that can give
di
you
un
many
sacco di
ideas,
soluzioni.
can give you a lot of food for thought,
Un
and also can
grandissimo
offer many
sacco di soluzioni,
solutions.
perché la sostenibilità, fin quando rimane una parola,
If
non
sustainability
funziona, non
remains
serve a
a
niente.
word, trust me,
Ha
it's
molto
not
più
worth
senso
anything. It
quando
doesn't work.
incominci a vedere
Sustainability really makes sense
che
when you
quello che
start
fai
seeing
non
that
consuma
what you do
risorse
does
non
not use
riproducibili,
up
che quello
natural
che fai
resources. When you start seeing that what you're
un
doing
senso della
is
natura che
really
comunque
helping the sense of nature.
e poi
It
ancora
really
di più,
allows nature to
comunica
keep
un
expressing
senso di
itself.
naturalità,
And most importantly,
della capacità
sustainability
delle
needs to
cose di
convey a meaning
naturalizzarsi.
of
Questo è un tema per
nature,
me
of
molto importante.
reality. This is something
Non è
that I
una cosa
consider really
stabile,
close to me,
fissa,
a
che
topic that I
rimane
really
sempre
have at
tutto quello
heart.
fatto, pulito, nuovo, bello
You
lucido.
cannot think
La
that you
natura
do
è
something and
qualcosa
it's going to stay
che
clean and perfect as
invecchia,
when you first
che
made it.
con il
Nature
tempo che va
ages just
le
like
cose.
humans.
Montale diceva, la polvere è la pelle del tempo. Ecco, quella
At the end
pelle
of the
del
day,
tempo
if
lì
we
è una
find
cosa che
dust
ha
in our
una
home,
continua
that is
sua
nothing but the skin of
trasformazione
time.
e questa
So
trasformazione qui è
This
sempre
transformation in
bellissima,
time
perché è
is
quello che
always
dobbiamo ammirare,
incredible.
è quello che
This
dobbiamo
is what we need to
dobbiamo
admire. We
che
need
le
to
cose
learn
che
how to
facciamo si
appreciate the fact that what
naturalizzino
we're doing
nell'ambiente, si
will
naturalizzino
take part
con
in the
la
environment.
situazione
They will
dell'aria,
become
con la
part of the
luce
environment.
sai,
They will
oggi
become better because of the lighting, because of the air.
falegnami qui della zona, sono in Trentino, mi ha
I
detto,
am currently in the
sì,
region in Trentino, in the north of
il
Italy,
legno, che è
and the
verde, il
carpenter
legno
nearby
diventa
told me
grigio
that wood
con
becomes
la
gray
luce della luna. Io
with
non lo
the
sapevo,
light of the
non
moon.
sapevo che
I
la
didn't
luce
know
della
this.
luna, della,
I did
sai,
not
i
know that
lumi
the light
che
of the
quando
moon
quando
would change the color
c'è
of
il
wood.
cielo pieno di stelle, senza nuvole, e una luna splendente, grande come un
So when
sole,
the sky is
ecco, quella
clear,
luce
there are
lì, che
stars,
poi
you
è
really
la luce
see the
anche
moon. That
che fa
light coming from
diventare
the
magica
moon
la realtà,
will
è anche quella
make
che fa
our
diventare grigio
reality
il legno.
magic. And
Questo
also,
sì
it
lo
will
sapevo.
turn wood
Grazie,
into a
questa è
different
una
color. It will make it
novità che
gray.
nessuno, che almeno io non conoscevo.
Oh, wow,
Ecco.
this is incredible. I didn't know
C'è
this.
qualche altra domanda? Sì,
Are
Simona
there other
chiede cosa
questions?
pensa della materia e come
Simona
desidera
asks you, what do you think
interpretarla
of
nel
materials and
futuro
how
di
do
una
you want to
visione
interpret them
sostenibile.
in the
Ecco,
understanding of a
benissimo.
sustainable future?
Direi che è proprio la continuazione di questo che ho appena detto. Cioè,
Well, I
la
think that this
materia,
question is
cercare
nothing
la
but a
materia che non
continuation of what I
cambia
was just
mai,
saying.
la materia
We
che
need
è
to find
resistente
materials that
a
never change, that
a
are
tutte le mani della terra,
resistant
a tutta anche la
to the
patina che gli
hands
dà
of
le
the
cose.
earth.
Pensa che bella che è la patina delle cose, la patina che ti dà il senso del tempo trascorso, delle mani che l'hanno
How
toccato,
incredible is the coating
della vita
of
dell'uomo. Ogni cosa ha una
objects that
sua
we've
vita.
touched?
Il vetro ha
Everything
una sua
has
vita,
its own
il
lifespan.
marmo ha una sua
Wood
vita,
have its
tutti i
lifespan
materiali
as well
naturali
as
hanno una vita,
marble.
tutti i
All natural
materiali
materials
artificiali
have a
hanno
lifespan.
altrettanto una vita.
Different, and
Una
also
vita che è
artificial
fatta
materials have a
dalla
lifespan.
naturalizzazione delle
This
cose
life is made
e
of the
dal valore
naturalization
culturale
of
che ogni
things
cosa che
and of the
facciamo ha.
cultural value
Perché ogni
given to
cosa che
each
facciamo
object.
è testimonianza del
Everything
momento
we
in cui lo
do
stiamo
is a
facendo.
testimony of
E,
what we're doing.
e oggi sicuramente noi facciamo le cose che danno testimonianza del momento
Nowadays,
storico di
we
oggi,
act
del
giving a
2020,
testimony
così come
of
negli anni
today's
80
world.
disegnavamo per la
So we're
Memphis
testimony
e
for
davamo
the 2020.
il senso
In the
che
80s, we were
iniettavamo
drawing
dentro i
for
nostri
the
prodotti,
Memphis
era
group,
quel senso
and the
di
meaning that we wanted to
libertà
give to our
che ho
project was
descritto
the
prima,
meaning of
dei
freedom that
primi
I was
anni
talking about
80
earlier.
e
So
di
typical
tutta
of
quella
the
decade
80s.
così importante per il design italiano.
Grazie ancora.
Thank you once again.
Allora, se non ci sono ulteriori domande,
If there are no
ringraziamo
more
Michele,
questions, I think
grazie
we
di
can
mano.
thank
C'è
Michele.
Giulia
Oops,
che
no, there is one more
cosa
question
vuol
from
dire
Giulia.
osare nel tuo mestiere?
Julia asks you, what does it mean to
non
dare
solo
in your
osare
job?
è importante, ma è proprio
Well, not only is it important to dare,
importante gettare
but it is
l'immaginazione
important
dove
to
non
be
te
able to go
l'aspetti.
beyond
Perché
imagination,
il
to use imagination even when
successo
we do not
dei
expect it.
prodotti, il successo dell'architettura, il
The
successo,
success of
il
products,
successo di
of
qualsiasi cosa
architecture,
noi facciamo
the
oggi
success
non
of
è
anything we do today
1000 metri quadri di
is not
appartamenti, di
building
uffici
big apartments or offices
o pareti piene di
or
armadi o piene di cucine. Quello che noi
mm,
facciamo oggi, quello che noi
walls
progettiamo
and
è la
closets.
faccia
What we
del
do
futuro.
and what we design
Quello che noi
today
facciamo
is the
oggi
face of
è
the
proprio
future.
capire come sarà il mondo
What we do
tra
today
5
is try
anni,
to understand how the
tra 10
world will be
anni,
in
tra
5
20
years,
anni.
in 10
È
years,
quello
or in
che
20 years.
dà valore a quello che noi facciamo. Non è
This is what gives
solamente
value to what we're doing.
costruire tecnicamente
So
qualche
we can
cosa,
not only
ma è
focus on creating
respirare,
something that is technically
assorbire
perfect,
dalla
we need to be
contemporaneità,
able to
dalle
breathe
conoscenze che
in
abbiamo oggi,
and
dalla
take all the
sensibilità che
knowledge
abbiamo
that we
oggi,
have
tutto quello che è più,
to
è più
really be
il
able to
sapore
understand what the
della vita che
taste
noi
of the world and the life
stiamo
is.
vivendo oggi e trasferirla in un'idea migliore del
Once we
futuro.
understand this,
Osare vuol dire
once we
questo.
understand the flavor of the
Osare vuol
world, we
dire
will be
anche
able to
trasferire.
turn it
C'è
into
molto
a
da
better vision of the
disimparare.
future. We need to understand that
Lo
there are
dico
many
sempre al
things that we
circo,
need to
al
forget about.
circo gli dico,
There are many things
dobbiamo
we've
imparare,
learned
ma
and
dobbiamo
we
anche
need to
disimparare.
learn
In
how
realtà lo
to
dico
let them
perché
go.
sono io che
And
devo
this is something I
disimparare.
always tell,
Molte
especially at
molte
my
cose
people at Circle.
che
We learn
noi
things, but
della mia
sometimes we need to let
generazione
them
facciamo
go.
fatica a capire
It is hard for people from my generation to understand that some things are belonging to the past. We are still rooted on certain concepts that are not part of the reality anymore. We understand that things have changed. We know that time is related to matter.
Il tempo è qualche cosa che è legato alla materia e la materia deforma il tempo.
Time is something related to matter, and matter changes time. Nowadays, we know this. Actually, we've known it for 50 years, but now this is something that everyone knows. We understand it much more than in the past. And for this reason, we need to take this concept and really put it into what we're doing. Nowadays, the virus has completely changed our lives. It has caused a big crisis that no one could have expected. And even if some people expected it, they didn't really believe it. Even those who were saying that it was going to be a virus, they didn't really know if it was going to happen. So now that we have this extra knowledge, let's take it and put it into everything we do. Thank you, Michele. One more question by Luciano. How do you see the development of design applied to the world of kitchens? And what will be the future topics you want to work on?
Prima cosa di tutti è il design, questo lo diceva Ettore Sozzas.
First of all, let me tell you something that Ettore Sozzas was saying. That is, that design makes sense when there is no style of design. We always think about the style of design. So we think that if something looks new, if something looks modern, then it works. The design means when something is clear or colorful. This is not true.
Mai come oggi abbiamo messo a confronto il senso della fisicità con il senso
Nowadays, we have really linked the meaning of physical to the meaning of mental.
Ecco, io direi proprio questo.
So I think that this is what I would focus on. When I told you the story earlier about cooking and the story by Isabel Allende, I'm sure that you could think that was a bit pornographic, but trust me, it is not. I think that is the starting point for a kitchen that is related to the human body, related to all the human senses.
Olfatto, udito, tatto,
so smell, eyesight, listening, all of this is put together in the kitchen. And this needs to be also linked to seduction. If there is no seduction, there will be no couples, no men with women or men with men, woman with woman. The seduction is fundamental in our life. Seduction is the key element to be able to go on and to find a better idea. So what is the seduction of the kitchen? Well, I would really like to be able to put together the seduction of the single elements to be able to create a new idea of seduction in the circle. I want to create something that makes people say, I want to go there right now. Okay, I think that we're almost out of time, but we have one more question. What's the project but you haven't realized yet? This is a question by Stephen. Well, my life from today to when I turn 100. This is a big project. I need to think about the future, what I will do in the next few years. Again, another concept taken by Ettore Sozzas. Let me say that my project is not a technical project. It is important to have a life project, because if you don't have this, you won't be able to link all the technical competencies that we have today. All these abilities do not make sense if you are not able to really understand the meaning of life. Ettore was very important when he was telling me these things. Do you remember Ettore? He always had his eyes a bit closed and a big mustache. And thanks to his stories, thanks to quoting Hemingway and stories by Bob Dylan and Kerouac and his life in the 1960s in California, I was there listening to him, and I would listen to him for hours and nights and hours and more hours. And then he would cook pasta for me, just a plain pasta with some olive oil and garlic.
Telefonavamo in Giappone, telefonavamo in Brasile.
We would call
perché
people in
volevamo
Japan and
sentire che
Brazil,
eravamo
and
tutta
we really wanted
umanità
to
insieme
understand
che
that
sentiva in quel
humanity was
momento
all
le stesse cose che
connected.
sentivamo noi
We
a
wanted to
Milano.
understand that in
Allora,
Milan
grazie
we were
mille
feeling the
Michele,
same things as
coloro
everyone
che
else in
sono
the
in
world.
linea, in ascolto,
Okay, thank you,
a
Michele.
loro
To all of
daremo i
those who are
prossimi
still
appuntamenti. Il
listening,
calendario dei prossimi
let me
appuntamenti
tell you
sarà
that the next
recuperabile sui
meeting for
social
the
di
live
Rossana.
talks will be
Quindi
posted
grazie
on
mille
Rossana
Michele e grazie agli
Live Talks
ascoltatori e
website.
alla prossima
So
appuntamento.
thank you
Un
to
bacio.
everyone, and we will see you soon.
Grazie, un bacio,
Goodbye.
ci vediamo presto, ci vediamo a Milano.
Sì.
Goodbye. We'll see you in
Un
Milan.
saluto
Thank
a
you.
tutta RB Rossana.
Goodbye, everyone,
No,
and
no,
hello and goodbye
a
to
tutta
Rossana, to the whole group
Sì.
of Rossana.
Allora, buonasera a tutti.
Okay, good.